Dan used to show up, and he used to take his spot on the bar, on the edge. Everybody at the yacht club knows that this is his spot. So if you stayed at that spot and he showed up, you had to get out of there. So anyway, we used to talk, and we had a really good time. And then when the dinner ended and people started leaving, Dan always used to say, you know, we are getting rid of the lunch crowd. And then he went back to the back of the bar, and he put on his music, and he took requests, and we had a great time doing it for a long time. And then, you know, we were talking, my wife and I, we were new members, and the Commodore's Ball came up, and, you know, we were not sure about the Commodore's Ball, and you know, we didn't know what it was all about, so we didn't want to go. And we were a few new members over there that didn't really want to go, and Dan said, you know what, I'm going to open the bar for us during the Commodore's Ball, and we'll just have a good time and play music. So that's what he did. He opened the bar for us new members that didn't want to go, and he put on his music, and we got pizza, and we just had a great time, you know. And that's what I remember about Dan, you know, just a guy that whenever you were around him, you had a good time, you know, and I'll miss him, I really will.
Great. Erwin, come on up. So if you came in late, we're just sharing stories about Dan. I'm not sure, a couple of people came in. I want to make sure they know that anyone is welcome to come up and say a few words. Remember, there's children in the room.
I'll leave out all the good things that Dan did. There was a wise man named Heinz von Foster. I don't know if you knew him. He was a pretty smart guy. I think Eric Shapiro did made a movie about death and dying and hospice, etc. And he asked Heinz, he said, how could you tell if you have lived a good life? And his answer was very simple. He said, ask others. And look and see, just look at this.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely right.
I'm Marcus, and Heather and I are Dan's neighbors. Heather and Dan were the first people I met when I moved into the neighborhood back in 1986, and I can tell you they were incredibly welcoming, best neighbors anybody could ever have. I have one really, I think it's a funny story about when Heather and Dan were arguing about this tree that they had. And now, all of you know how good a gardener Dan was. Right? So, you imagine this big tree, and Dan wanted to keep it. Heather thought it was an abomination. So what they did was they were arguing. So a neighbor, Joe Fruworth, and I came by, and we were talking to Dan and Heather, and he said, okay. And so Dan went off to go shopping for beer or something. And then, so what we did is we had a chainsaw, and we took out that tree, let it lay, you know, right there, right in front of the driveway, and then we gave Heather this little hatchet. Okay? And what we did was we kind of hacked away at the base and the part we cut with the chainsaw. And Dan came back, and Heather's standing there with this little hatchet and this massive tree. And the look on Dan's face was kind of surprised and just looking around for other people. And Joe and I were in his house, just we couldn't contain ourselves. But Dan was just awesome neighbor, great friend. Rotary, he suggested I apply for a GS fellowship to go to Perth. And so 1992, I went to Perth, the Rotary. And I want to thank the Rotary for that, and for Dan, Heather, and miss them deep.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Any of the kids?
Oh. like Aaron said, I'm the eighth kid. So, I don't know if the door was always unlocked, but it always was when I walked over, because I lived right next door. So I'd come over like 7 a.m. on the weekend. Everyone was still asleep, but anyhow, the door was unlocked. And so I'm sure you guys all grew up next door to somebody who had the best food. That was this house. I could name all, ice cream sandwiches, Cocoa Krispies, bagel dogs, many things, Otter Pops. It was just like heaven. It was just, we didn't have that at my house, so I was always at their house. And then I have 2 brothers, and so Amy, Andrea, and Beth, and Erin are like my sisters. So I spent hours and hours over there. I remember in elementary school, I forgot my lunch once. And when I got to the principal's or the secretary, I actually thought I only had 1 phone call. So I was like, I don't know. So I was like, do I call my mom, or 726-4123. I was gonna call Heather and Dan because I knew for sure they would bring me a lunch. So I made the call. Years later, I was working at the San Benito house, forgot my white shirt in the catering, and again called Dan, and he had to go get my shirt and then bring it to me in weekend traffic. I made a super Dan card after that. Among other things, Dan always made really good breakfasts, like French toast and pancakes and omelets, and he'd have this iron skillet that he would put in the oven and looked so delicious. And then I'm sure I ate plenty of those too. And when I would come over, sometimes he would make an announcement, invasion of the army ants, but that was referring to me because I would be eating. I'm just gonna miss him. Thank you. That's great.
Hi, I'm Ginger, and I am another past president of Rotary. If you lined us all up, you'd probably want to put us in front of a fire squad. There are a lot of us out there. But Dan was my president when I joined Rotary. Actually, Shirley Leo was, but I was on Dan's board. And so I've known him for a good 20 years or so. And he's been a wonderful friend and all the wonderful things. 30? Am I off a decade? Well. And he's been a wonderful friend and just a hard worker and what a positive attitude. But for the last 3 years, he and Heather have been my neighbors. And I've been so fortunate to live just around the corner from them. And as he's gone through some of the struggles he's had with his health the last few years, I'd pull out of Marseille, I'd look over and see, is the van there or not? And that would kind of be an indication of what might be happening in Dan's life. And if it wasn't, I immediately called the cell phone and said, what's going on? And so we went back and forth, and the last year or so, I have so much admiration for him, for the warrior that he was in the face of all the difficulties he faced with his health. And he just wasn't going to give in. And there'd be a week or two that would go by, and he'd miss his Sunday night at the yacht club, which was one of the most important things to him. And I'd say, you're going to go? And he said, well, I'm going to try and make it. So Paul and I might go down and get with Heather, get that van, which was just tricked out and equipped on the inside with Kleenex boxes and all the things that he might possibly ever need in that evening. And we'd go over, and the red carpet would be rolled out for him, and we had a lot of good times. But like Dave, it's hard to talk about him because he was a bright light in our life, and he's going to be missed. But I do celebrate his life.
Other memories to share?
Hi, I'm Omer Thompson. I mostly knew Dan through his children. And if you didn't really know Dan, and you do know these girls, then you know what a wonderful person he was. I sometimes measure life as to what you've done in your life and what you've brought into life. And I look at you, Lindsay, and I look at Amy, and I look at the others, and I think Dan brought those to us. He nurtured them into the people that they are now, and the effect and the goodness that they're going to make on life. And when I think of Dan, I think of someplace somebody's giving a class on how to smile and greet somebody warmly. And that was Dan. Thank you.
So while you're thinking, my mom used to tell me that you can't know the mountaintop unless you know the valley below. And that's what we're experiencing right now, but we're celebrating that mountaintop. Paul?
I'm Paul McReynolds. I'm just a good friend of Dan. I think the thing that I recall so easily is he had a great smile almost all the time, even when things were really bad. He seemed to always smile, and I'll always remember that.
Anyone else? Come to the back of the room.
Hi. We know Dan didn't want a big gathering to do about him, so I'm sure that he's rolling over in his grave, as it were. So I'll try not to say too many nice things about Dan. We all have parts of our childhood that we have a difficult time outgrowing. And I remember going back to my 50th high school reunion with some degree of trepidation because of having to run into all of those guys that were able to be so mean back in those days. And I was so delightfully surprised that they'd all grown up, and it was a very, very happy and fun reminiscence. Well, that childish barbs and jabs part of childhood is one that Dan didn't really grow early on. He was able to dish it out for a long time. Maybe in the last few years he seemed to have less of that rough exterior. But Dan and I have children the same age. Dan Jr. is the same age as my oldest son, and Amy, my second son, and I think Beth is the same age as my daughter. And I have a tribute to Beth. I have to thank Beth for the favor that she did for me. Our kids played together. They went to school together. And it was around, Beth was about 5 or 7 years old, and she was playing over at our house, and into the evening, and she thought she might stay, and we called to see if that was okay with her parents, and I said, "Oh, that's fine, but we'll stay up to pick her up because Amy never spends the night anywhere." And that night she did stay the whole night for the first time somewhere, and I think that validated me in Dan's eyes, and got me past that rough exterior into the wonderful heart of the man that those of us that are here all know. And it's been a long and joyful friendship.
I'm Amy. I'm Dan's oldest daughter. I wasn't going to say anything. I didn't think I'd be able to make it through. I probably won't. But I have to call baloney on what Charlie just said about Dad not wanting these kinds of events. He would be embarrassed at first, but he would have loved it deep down. We've had a couple of big blowouts over the last few years. Oh, sorry. We had Dave Cresson hosted a party up on the hilltop for Dad's 75th birthday party, and Charlie organized something at the yacht club this year after he kind of got back on his feet, so to speak, after his trauma at the end of last year, just to kind of celebrate that. And both times, I mean, at Dave's house, he just, he said to me, what are these people doing here? Is there some other event? And then after the party, I knew that Charlie was pulling something together, and he called me the next day and said, and just went on and on about how touched he was that people showed up for him. He was incredibly humble. I think you say that about people, and sometimes humble people are not really humble deep down, but he was really humble. And he just loved the friendships that he had on the coast, and it was, it's hard to watch Dave and Charlie talk, because it's painful. It's hard to lose him, but I think just a story I'll share. It was the first one that came to me after he died that day. I think we got to spend a few more years with him than probably his body would have chosen, purely because he wanted to stick around. And this story came to me of when the last time we were in Tahoe. That was a favorite place of Dad's, and just he loved the snow. He loved Half Moon Bay, but he always missed the seasons. He loved the snow. And my brother Tom and I had gone out. We wanted to go out and hike a trail. It had snowed overnight, and it was still coming down really hard. And Dad was not walking very well, but wanted to drive along and wait in the car while we walked. And so we went to the parking lot, and he said he'll get out of the car, and he just waited by the bridge. And Tom and I walked on and kind of walked around the lake a little bit. And on the trail on the way back, we ran into Dad, like a mile into the trail, on his walker or on his cane. His head kind of bowed, but it was fresh snow, and it was probably 3-4 inches of fresh snow, and he just couldn't resist, I think, the beauty of it and the experience of it. And I think up until the end, that's how it was. He just wanted to keep living and experiencing and being with the people he loved. So it's very hard to let him go. But thank you.
Anyone else?
As you see the pictures, what I would like to give to everybody is a comforting event that happened to me when Dan passed on Monday morning, and I felt like my life had come untethered. He's the central focus for our family. And the Thursday morning after Dan passed, he came to me people would call it a dream, but I felt like I was in the same place that Dan was. And if you see pictures of Dan 35 years ago with completely dark hair, that's the Dan that visited me in what most people would call a dream. But he was standing next to me 4 or 5 feet away, perfectly dark hair, standing completely strong in a dark blue pea coat, and he was kind of beaming, and he said, "I've got someplace I must go." And he walked towards a building structure that had all glass doors. And as rough as it's been the last few years to see Dan struggle and fight harder than I've ever seen any person struggle to live, I feel blessed once again by Dan and by God to have that comforting image of Dan, 35, 40 years old, completely strong, dark hair, and he was perfectly fine, perfectly strong, and he said, I just have somewhere I must go. And that's, I feel blessed to have that in my mind's eye as my last. So I hope that whatever you feel about the afterlife, maybe carry that with you.
Anyone else? Okay, how about EJ? Why don't you come play us a happy tune? Aaron, anything else? Oh, we have one more, EJ, or a couple more.
Hi. Is this okay? Good?
Talk about
Okay. I am Beth, the youngest, I guess. Well, no, Aaron's younger. Sorry, Aaron, where are you? There you are. You come up here. I'm not doing this alone, Aaron. Get up here. All right, so yeah, we didn't hear from all the kids, so obviously we're not done. Thank you all for being here. This is really so the 75th birthday party I put together against his wishes. He really didn't want me to do it, and I did it anyway, and it was amazing. And many people said it was the best party they'd ever been to. And I was like, Dad, he's like, I don't understand. Why would all these people want to come to my party? I'm like, because everyone loves you. And he's like, what? That's crazy. And I'm like, that's why everyone loves you, because you just don't get it. You're amazing, and you don't care that everyone loves you. You just love everyone. And he's a special, special person, and all 7 of us, and 8, and I mean, that's the thing, he just loved kids, you know? I feel like he could relate to kids, and he just wanted you to have a good time and understand that the point of life is just have as much fun as you can. And I don't know, this is going all directions, but I'm glad you saw that, Eric, because I don't understand why this was his time to go. I don't feel like he was done. I definitely didn't feel like he was done. And that's something that I don't understand. He was sick since 2005. He had prostate cancer, and it developed into other cancers. And yeah, he never stopped fighting. And you would think that sometime in those 12 years, he would have been like, all right, here's what's up, kid, afterlife, whatnot. But that never happened. He never once was like, okay, when I go, X, Y, Z. That conversation never happened. It was he never, ever thought he would go. And I'm kind of angry about that. Could we have had that conversation? That would have helped a lot in this sense of closure. But that was him. It was here's the world. You can't understand it. Let's enjoy it. That was the whole thing, you know? Let's have a good time. I don't get it either. Let's just have an IPA. You know? We'll do what we gotta do. But definitely the one lesson that I took from him, which I think a lot of us took from him, is that children are our future, you know? And we were all his best friends. All 8 of us were his best friends, and probably more, because I know there's a lot of people out there that are yeah, Dan was father to me. And if some people who aren't here would say that, you know? Because he was an amazing dad, and he just made you feel good as a kid. And so I hope, those are my kids sitting over there, and Andrea's kid, Avi, Tessa, Will, JD, and they're having a hard time saying goodbye to Grandpa, but I'm trying to tell them, he wouldn't want you to have a hard time. This is a celebration of his life for a reason. But, so, I hope I'm as good a parent as he was. And the one lesson that he taught me was, your kids are your best friends. And not in a, let them get away with anything type of thing. It was just, enjoy hanging out with them. Have a good time with them. That's the best you can do. Just love your family. And so I know that like when someone passes, like everyone deals with it differently, and it sucks for different people for different reasons. And the most important thing I think we can do is just stay together as a family and unite as a family, and that would make him really happy. And I think this makes him really happy. And so, yeah, I definitely feel like that body was done. Like, he was like, dang it, I'm gonna run this thing into the ground, and he did. He totally did, but he's not done, obviously, and like, I'm so glad that like, obviously, he's up to some different crazy things right now. He was at a higher plane than all of us, and he gets to do something cooler now. And so, I'm happy to see everyone here today, and this is a great day for all of us. And now you have to say something. Cheers. Let's do that one.
The tail end of the 8 where sometimes it's hard to be the tail end, but I guess one thing that Dan is so great for is one-liners, right? Every single person in this room has heard a fantastic one-liner, if not a more complicated joke, but definitely some one-liners were there. And so we've talked about that a lot, and one of the things that Beth just mentioned made me think of one that I know so many people in this room also are a part of, and we're a part of all of us, creating this Half Moon Bay, this construct where people are accepted and loved for who they are, and are able to take risks and go outside their comfort zones because they know they have a base. And Dan created for so many of us a base. And one of the things he and my mom Heather said to us from the time we were young, because we were part of that generation where like getting into college is a big deal, and it's still a big deal, but I realize now after that point that there was some kind of shift there where college just became something. And he always used to say, and Mom used to say to us before we were applying, if you can get in, we will get you there. And that is one of those things that he didn't do by himself. You know, so many people in this room contributed to us and to his ability to get us there. And we all got there. We all came out the other side, right? And so if you're one of us, all of us, you know that you need transportation and a phone and a Costco card, right? And that really stable base. Because when you have a really stable base, you can take risks, right? And I sometimes, realize so many things as an adult that the partnership, the huge, sprawling empire that 2090 Terrain Lane was birthed at 2090 Terrain Lane. There is no one word for it. In the guest book, I wrote Bodman Towers because that became kind of a joke a while ago, but oh my gosh, it's not a joke. Dan is an empire builder. And many people in this room are also empire builders. And being able to grow up in this world of just big thinking and bringing from anywhere you can and loving what you don't know and loving what you don't understand is just something that you can't ever leave behind once you really know it, you know? And he and she and you and us and everybody, I think we really know that. And thank you for being part of this representation. And on the way here, folks kept saying, how many people are coming? How many people are coming? And I was like, 1,000? 1,000,000? I have no idea. It could be anyone, anyhow, because Dan built an empire that neighbored many other empires. So thank you just for doing it. Every piece of what we are and what's happening today, every single person in this room was a part of, is a part of, will be a part of, has built, will build, all of it. You know, there's no time. Like we have this beautiful place that we live in, nature-wise, and this beautiful place that we live in that we all created, and it's completely timeless. Today is timeless, past, present, and future. And I'm just so glad to look around right now and see the people that, you know, have thrown in their lot with me as much as anybody else. So cheers to all of us together here now, today, tomorrow, and forever.
I'm Tom, one of the two juniors in the family. Danny's also a junior. I started living with Dan when I was about 5 or 6, right? And I'll have to tell you a few stories. There's too much time has passed to narrow it down to just one story. Closer? Okay. I should know this. I'm running for state assembly. It's took my time. He used to schlep me and Eric and later all the other kids over the hill to school, you know, for decades. That is when I first heard bluegrass. As an example. It was not the first, the second, or probably even the 8th style of music that I would have chosen. But since he was driving, he got to choose the music. Plus, I was 6. What was I going to say? Over a couple decades, I finally kind of started to, what was that? You know, it's like, oh, you know, it's the Travelers. Or I was shocked when I found out he liked the Grateful Dead. So that was some happy middle ground. But over the years, he also got to a point where he would record on, you know, one of those old crazy fashion tape recorders, audio letters to his mom. And he did that like on the way over to the hill and on the way back for, I don't know, it seemed like a decade. And I don't know if it was maybe she had vision problems, she lived back in Ohio, but he would just dote over the most, you know, minutia, just telling her how his day went. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't see. We don't see much of Dan's family from Ohio over the years, but he was very, very close to his mom. There were periods after, I guess he transferred them on a reel-to-reel tape. There's got to be a huge reel-to-reel tape collection somewhere, not just of the music, but I think also of his audio letters to his mom. He also loved to build things with his hands. You have to remember, he grew up and he lamented the death of the slide rule. I mean, he thought it was one of the worst things that ever happened. And he showed me how to use a slide rule. I mean, I knew how factorials worked when I was 7. I didn't know what they were good for. But he was a math teacher, and I wasn't anywhere near the wrestling, so he taught me math. And he built a bed for the back. We had this old van, and he made it from scratch, so he can go camping. You see a lot of those pictures, not just because you take pictures when you go camping, but when we were growing up, it was camping all the time. He loved the outdoor fire, figuring out how to do bacon on the side of a coffee can or something like that. He was really kind of close to the earth at that level, and really, really enjoyed that period of time in America, which really, it seems like we don't have. We kind of maintained that in the coast side a little bit. I live now down in Carlsbad in North San Diego. It's like Half Moon Bay times 10, unfortunately, in terms of size, but there's similar culture. And he built so many things. I went away to camp, I came back, and he built a bunk bed in my room. And I had a new roommate. Which I didn't understand. I thought he was just playing a game in my room. But I think Amy was on deck, so to speak, or maybe it was Andrea, I'm not quite sure. But I figured it out a couple years later. But he loved building things, and I think he finally had to get help to get the deck fixed, right? Because I know he wanted to do that himself. He let it go for, I'm going to do it this year, next year. So the garage was all tricked out with tools, and he didn't make a lot of stuff the last few years. One story, it won't be the only one I'll tell you though, but back before cars were all electronic, which again was, I think, a disappointing evolution in the world to him, because he loved to work on cars himself. I guess it was my first car. I have this 72, actually I can't tell you because then you can break into my bank account, but it was an old car with a big engine, American. Something went wrong with it early on, I think maybe right after I got it. And he knew I needed it. It was cool. So it was a complete teardown. I think it was a head gasket replacement. So anybody who's done a head gasket replacement knows it's difficult. We worked over it for a couple of days, and we finally finished it. And the car didn't start, and tinkers, and I pretty much just watched. And I finally got it going, and it seemed to go well. I ended up driving it for a couple of years. But at that moment when we finished it and we got it going, I looked down on the ground and I said, well, what are those things? And there were like 3 6-inch bolts that were from somewhere in that engine. They didn't buy any new parts. We only got the new gasket. And I never found out where they were from. But it worked, and he's like, look, it works, And that was kind of, I would say, that was kind of like Dan. It was like, as long as it worked. And he enjoyed the process, and he took a lot of pride in the work that he did, with his own bare hands. And I know that the Rotary and the Yacht Club were very much a part of his kind of day-to-day life, and what really helped him feel connected. And he really cared much about you guys. I mean, I would see him spend hours. I don't know how often your Rotary newsletter comes out. Was it weekly or monthly? And most of the time it's just because he forgot how to actually do it. It's like, I can't, FileMaker, and you know how to do this, and I can't find the photos from last week. And but he never really complained. In fact, I never really remember ever hearing him complain about anything. I mean, he would, like the thing about the FileMaker and stuff is not really a complaint, but he always just was trying to figure out how to get accomplished what it is that he wanted to accomplish and get to the end of the day so we could go down to the yacht club and play music and enjoy the pleasure of everyone's company. And I would say regarding this, as long as everybody has an adult beverage, I think he would be happy and we play some music. The kids, even if the parents are here, it's up to you. He was a libertarian, I'm quite sure. And what else could I tell you? I do know that one of the things he most wanted for his kids, because I started living in when I was 6, so I had a little bit of a different perspective on things. My mom told me very early on that she was the only one allowed to discipline him. And Dan was there at the table. We had our private meeting. I don't know if I told all you guys this. And he's sitting on the side in this table on a chair. He's paying attention. He's kind of like, I'm looking at him, and he's thinking, look, you and I both know this is not a good idea, but this is what she says, right? And I looked at my mom, and I go, yeah, I can go with that, because I knew my mom was a pushover. So basically, I knew from when I was 6, I could do whatever I wanted, as long as I didn't get in trouble. And Dan was like, but I got my eyes. So don't ever get caught. I never got caught, so. But, he told me a number of times he would ask, he was always thinking, well, what can he do, or what shouldn't he do, so that his kids could be the most self-reliant as possible. For decades, he was always thinking about how are they going to, do in life when he's not there to take care of them. And so I would just say that, if anyone thought that he wasn't always there to help you, he always was there. But he wouldn't always want to reach out and to proactively give you something if he thought you needed it, because he wanted you guys to figure it out for yourself first. But he was always reliable, and I know that he was always there. I missed the last bus. It's dark. He's driving out to Hillsdale to pick me up and bring me back, just like Lindsay was talking about. That is very much the quintessential Dan. To an extreme. He cut his hand with a chainsaw one time, right? You probably remember that story.
He did like to cut his own hair.
No, not his hair, his hand. He was doing something in the backyard. He cut his hand, with a chainsaw, and he took nothing but a paper towel and an aspirin. I think it took hours. Charlie probably saw him later that night.
The phone was hanging off.
Eventually. But it was hours of stuff. I was like, what's going on down there? It's like, he cut his hand off with a chainsaw. I was like, hey, I couldn't believe it. No, he just cut it. But I've never cut my hand with a chainsaw, and I wouldn't try it. But he was tough as nails, and I always imagined him as, you know, one of those football players before the helmets. And I mean, he's got more hair on his arm than, you know, I have on my head. So that was always kind of the image that I had growing up with him. And like I said, that he was just incredibly reliable, and he very much, like I said, enjoyed the company of people, the music. Yes, a good IPA or any kind of A or P or I or, you know, whatever. And about his sense of humor, I have to admit that I've been out with Dan drinking a number of occasions, let's just say, as the second oldest. I'm 47, so it was all legal.
It's legal.
It was all legal. But we left a number of bartenders and bartendresses and waitresses completely confused, because he would try to make a joke and it was always dry. You know, it's something like, you know, you could use a little bit more ink on that receipt or something, and they're like, what? And to him, it was hilarious. And I got it most of the time. They thought, like, you got a problem with me? So I don't know if any of you guys have stories about going out at a bar and then trying to make small talk, because he always wanted to talk and get to know whoever he came across. And he always tried to inject some humor in it, but it was really dry sometimes. I would just throw that out as a possible theme. But really, thank you all for coming. It does make it easier. It's obviously a very difficult time. And you know, it's always a shock. He was sick for a long time, so not a complete surprise. But he did look he didn't look in pain. I was there a week before. One of the most comforting things, all the girls were there in his last days. You know, I don't know what else could you ask for. You know, thank you.
All right. Is that it? All right, so we're going to end. We have another hour in this room, and EJ will play some more beautiful music for us. On behalf of Heather and the family, thank you for coming and bringing food to share, food and drink to share. I would like to ask the Rotarians and anyone else at 4 o'clock that would like to help us clean up. The only reason we're able to use this room is because one of our members, Kevin, is a member of the PCC, and they have generously given us the room. So there is no one coming to clean it up afterwards except us. That's our regular Rotary routine, but please enjoy yourselves until 4, and then we'll worry about cleaning up later.
Very nice job. Oh, she was really healthy. I was afraid I was going to keep it going on. Actually, I didn't feel it was going to take my.
Oh, there's someone to say. Yeah.
I really I wouldn't want to go around because it was like, I would cut across your lawn with no shame. I was like, I'm just walking across my path straight to the door. I wonder if I ever woke you up. I mean, you were always like there, but no offense, I was there singing the image. Like, hey Danny, hey Danny. But yeah, you were a good one. You were, I think, a year older than Billy. Is that right? What year did you graduate from high school?
I think Billy's a little younger than me, just a little bit.
Yeah.
I remember Billy and Scotty and I used to cause trouble in the cul-de-sac.
Okay, so I always think of my older brother as the biggest troublemaker, so you were like an angel in my book. You never did anything wrong. You can play with him, yeah.
No, we're gonna go for a walk.
Oh, you can go for a walk. Go ahead. Bye. Go catch up to him.
She did not like you taking that sugar away from her.
She's like, wait a second. But yeah, I can't remember Scott's last name.
Rice. Scotty Rice.
You're good.
Yeah, and I think he was a little older than I was, I think, a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
But, I think we tormented Billy sometimes.
He needed it.
I don't know about that.
No, I'm glad.
We had a lot of tree climbing.
We walked down, on the cul-de-sac. There was a good tree for climbing, but they put...
In the middle of the cul-de-sac in particular, there's a very high tree. We used to go way up there and that thing.
we would try to climb it. We'd get like one limb in, and then we're like, nah, I'm good. Let's get done. So yeah, that was such a great neighborhood to grow up in, I thought.
There's not a lot of kids in there now, are there?
I think there's like a new turnover of kids. We rent it there, like, I can't remember what year it was, but it seemed like a dead zone. But also, like, we were allowed to be out and about running around for hours because we were in the neighborhood. And we go down to the creek and all that, but now you don't see people you don't see kids just running around. I don't see kids running around.
I don't see them anywhere. We grew up in Ocean Colony. Same kind of thing. It's like, so it was
Tons of kids.
Yeah, so we were all of us. We'd be at the beach, at the bottom of the pond. Yeah. We'd be everywhere.
And then now it's like, if I see kids by themselves, I'm like,
Maybe not in Omaha, though.
I know, what's it like there? Our kids?
I mean, we're getting
all the way there.
Okay, good.
a bit looser now, but usually it's an urban neighborhood, so you don't let the kids out of your sight, really. I mean, honestly. Yeah. We would not let the kids roam the neighborhood.
No.
That would never happen.
We would get out the tandem bicycle you guys have. Do you remember the tandem bike?
Amy found a photo the other day, and I totally forgot about it.
Yeah, we would ride that thing. I don't know how 4 of us fit on there, but...
Tandem bike.
Because there was like... Amy was in the front, and me...
Yeah, there was a seat in the front, like a kid's seat, and there was like a rack in the back.
Oh, that's where the seats were.
I don't know. Half the time, the tires weren't totally pumped. We figured that out part way, and then we're like, oh, let's pump them up. But, that was just great.
And you guys had Sweetwood across the way, too.
Yeah, like we never, like, you can, it was kind of scary to cross the highway, so we never go that far, but. Andrea, sit here.
Let's take
No, yeah, I took your spot. Sorry, you can just stand home.
I have it right here.
Yes.
I've used everything in there twice. I put all my dirty tissue in there.
Thank you.
I'll save it for later. There's some good desserts back there. Gluten-free? I left the house. No, not for me.
Yeah. I have gluten-free crackers.
I'll test everything and let you know. If there's any more spinach dip.
Yeah, I brought that. It's good.
Oh, you brought it. You made it from scratch, too. It doesn't taste like it. White. Did you add something to it?
No. It's just like it said like good things.
Thank you for not saying anything, Danny.
Where did you
What?
get it?
Thank you for not getting up and saying anything.
Where did you get it? It was actually
For a minute, I was like, I'm the only kid that hasn't said anything.
It's not the same.
It's not
Thank God
the
I didn't say
one.
anything.
It's not already pre-made in the tub.
It was a really nice event.
It's really good.
I was glad to be attended.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. Because I've had one from Safeway and they have like
I didn't have much to add.
It's not that good.
Is this supposed to be recording?
It's like sour too.
Whose is this?
I don't know.
Oh, that's Beth. She was recording something, I think.
But we can